Welcome to the part 4 of the Glycogen Metabolism series. In this video, we will simplify the regulation of the glycogen metabolism and uncover the key hormones, enzymes, and the signaling pathways that act as the body's metabolic switch. By the end, you will clearly understand how insulin, glucagon, epinephrine, and major enzymes work together to maintain the energy balance. This is perfect for MBBS exams and clinical understanding. So let's begin. First, let's understand the whole process in brief. Imagine you have been fasting overnight. Your body needs glucose immediately. And that's when hormones like epinephrine and glucagon they step in. They bind to their receptors on the cell membrane and activate the adenylyl cyclase, which converts the ATP into cyclic AMP, which is the second messenger. Cyclic AMP transports the signals inside the cell. As cyclic AMP levels rise, it activates protein kinase A or PKA. In liver, both epinephrine and glucagon they trigger this pathway. But in muscles, like skeletal muscles, only the epinephrine has this significant effect, but not the glucagon. Because in skeletal muscles, glucagon receptors are absent. The activated protein kinase A then phosphorylates multiple target enzymes and creates a powerful amplification cascade. The key outcome is reciprocal regulation. The glycogen phosphorylase, the enzyme that is responsible for the breakdown of the glycogen, it becomes activated. While glycogen synthase, the enzyme responsible for the glycogen synthesis, becomes inactivated. This ensures that the cell doesn't waste energy by synthesizing and degrading the glycogen at the same time, a phenomenon known as preventing futile cycling. As a result, the glycogen breakdown is switched on and glycogen synthesis is switched off, rapidly mobilizing the glucose when the energy demand is high. But once the stress is over and insulin levels rise, the system needs to be reset. Here, the insulin gets activated, and this activated insulin, will activate the phosphodiesterase enzyme. The phosphodiesterase will degrade the cyclic AMP into 5' AMP, shutting down the protein kinase A activity and terminating the cascade. This insulin mediated reset allows the cell to shift back towards the glycogen synthesis and energy storage. So, the entire cyclic AMP cascade acts like a molecular toggle switch. That is, epinephrine and glucagon flip the switch towards the glycogen breakdown, while insulin flips it back towards the glycogen storage. Now, let's understand in more depth about protein kinase A. Think of protein kinase A or PKA as the master switch that decides whether the glycogen should be stored or broken down. In its inactive state, the PKA exists as a tetramer called as R2C2. It contains two regulatory subunits and two catalytic subunits. When hormones such as glucagon or epinephrine increase the intracellular cyclic AMP levels, four molecules of cyclic AMP bind to the regulatory subunits of the inactive tetramer. This binding causes a conformational change that releases the catalytic subunits, converting the protein kinase A into its active form. The biochemical reaction can be summarized as R2C2 plus 4 cyclic AMP molecules yields two free catalytic subunits and the cyclic AMP bond regulatory complex. Once activated, the protein kinase A phosphorylates several target proteins, but its most important role in glycogen metabolism is reciprocal regulation. First, it activates the phosphorylase kinase, which in turn activates the glycogen phosphorylase, initiating the glycogen breakdown and rapidly releasing the glucose whenever the body needs the energy. At the same time, the PKA phosphorylates the glycogen synthase, converting it from the active A form to the inactive B form, thereby shutting down the glycogen synthesis. This dual action is extremely important because it prevents the futile cycling, the wasteful situation where the glycogen is synthesized and degraded simultaneously. So, whenever cyclic AMP rises, protein kinase A acts like a metabolic traffic controller. It gives a green signal to glycogenolysis and a red signal to glycogenesis and ensures that the cell responds efficiently to the energy demands. That is why the protein kinase A is considered as the central regulator and the master switch of the glycogen metabolism. Up to this point, the hormones like glucagon and epinephrine have increased the cyclic AMP and activated the protein kinase A. But protein kinase A itself does not directly break down the glycogen. Instead, it activates phosphorylase kinase, which serves as the key intermediary enzyme that acts as the critical bridge between the hormonal signal and the actual glycogen breakdown. Structurally, the phosphorylase kinase is a large tetrameric complex made up of four different subunits: alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. The gamma subunit is the catalytic core that performs the enzymatic activity, while the alpha and beta subunits they regulate its function through phosphorylation. Then the delta subunit is actually calmodulin, making the enzyme sensitive to calcium levels. This creates a fascinating dual control system. During fasting or stress, the hormones activate the protein kinase A, which phosphorylates and activates the phosphorylase kinase. During the muscle contraction, the rising intracellular calcium binds to the delta subunit and further stimulates the enzyme. In other words, phosphorylase kinase integrates both hormonal signals and muscle activity to determine when the glycogen should be broken down. Once activated, phosphorylase kinase converts the inactive glycogen phosphorylase B into active glycogen phosphorylase A, the enzyme that directly cleaves the glycogen and releases the glucose 1 phosphate for energy production. However, the process must also be switched off at the right time. So, protein phosphatase 1 or PP1 removes these phosphate groups and deactivates the phosphorylase kinase, thereby terminating the glycogenolysis. Basically, liver decides when to release the stored glucose and when to stop releasing the stored glucose. The key player making this decision is glycogen phosphorylase. During fasting or stress, hormones such as glucagon and epinephrine activate the cyclic AMP pathway, which leads to the activation of phosphorylase kinase. This enzyme phosphorylates the inactive glycogen phosphorylase B, converting it into active phosphorylase A form. Once activated, the phosphorylase A begins the glycogen breakdown, ensuring a steady supply of glucose to maintain the blood glucose levels. In fact, the phosphorylated state is the active form, whereas the dephosphorylated state is the inactive form, which is a classic example of covalent regulation. But what happens when the blood glucose rises after a meal? The liver has a built in safety mechanism. Free glucose directly binds to phosphorylase A and it induces a conformational change, shifting the enzyme into its inactive T state. This structural change exposes a critical phosphate group on serine 14 residue, allowing the protein phosphatase 1 or the PP1 to remove the phosphate and convert the phosphorylase A into phosphorylase B. In this way, glucose itself acts as an off switch for glycogen breakdown. The regulation doesn't stop there. High energy signals such as ATP and glucose 6 phosphate further inhibit the glycogen phosphorylase through allosteric mechanisms, preventing unnecessary depletion of glycogen stores when the cell already has sufficient energy. So, hepatic glycogen phosphorylase is controlled by both hormonal signals and the cell's metabolic state. The glucagon and epinephrine switch it on during fasting, while glucose, ATP, and glucose 6 phosphate, along with protein phosphatase 1, switch it off after feeding. So, this is how the liver decides when to release or when to stop releasing the glucose. Now, let's move on from the liver to skeletal muscle, where the glycogen breakdown is regulated with a completely different goal. Unlike the liver, which maintains the blood glucose for the whole body, the muscle glycogen exists solely to fuel the muscle contraction. The first important point is that glucagon has virtually no effect on the skeletal muscle because the skeletal muscle cells lack glucagon receptors. Instead, the primary hormonal signal is epinephrine. During exercise, stress, or fight or flight response, epinephrine binds to its receptors and activates the cyclic AMP PKA cascade, switching the glycogen breakdown on. But muscles cannot afford to wait for hormones alone. As ATP is rapidly consumed during the contraction, AMP levels rise, and the AMP acts as a powerful allosteric activator of the glycogen phosphorylase. This means glycogen breakdown can begin almost immediately, even before the hormonal signals are fully established. At the same time, nerve impulses trigger the release of calcium ions required for the muscle contraction. This calcium doesn't just help the muscle contract, but it also binds to the calmodulin, the delta subunit of the phosphorylase kinase, thereby activating the enzyme and further stimulating the glycogen breakdown. So, the same calcium signal that initiates the contraction simultaneously activates the glycogenolysis to provide the ATP needed for that contraction. As activated phosphorylase kinase converts the glycogen phosphorylase into its active form, glycogen is rapidly broken down. And glucose 1 phosphate enters energy producing pathways, and ATP is generated exactly when and where it is needed. So, in skeletal muscle, glycogenolysis is controlled by a powerful combination of epinephrine, AMP, and calcium, ensuring that the fuel delivery keeps pace with every contraction and allowing the muscles to respond instantly to increasing energy demands. So far, we spoke about the glucose release from the liver, that is glycogen breakdown, how it is regulated. Now, let's speak about the storage. Think of glycogen synthase as the master switch that determines whether the excess glucose will be stored for future use or not. When glucose is abundant after a meal, the body wants to convert that excess glucose into glycogen. And glycogen synthase is the enzyme responsible for building these glycogen chains. The enzyme exists mainly in two forms: glycogen synthase A, which is dephosphorylated form, and it is fully active, and glycogen synthase B, which is the phosphorylated and largely inactive form. The key hormone promoting the glycogen storage is insulin. When insulin binds to its receptor, it activates the signaling pathways that stimulate the protein phosphatase 1 or PP1. The PP1, it removes the inhibitory phosphate groups from the glycogen synthase, converting it into the active synthase A form and promoting the glycogen synthesis. At the same time, glucose 6 phosphate acts as an allosteric activator, serving as a metabolic sensor that tells the cell glucose is plentiful and should be stored. In contrast, during fasting, stress, or exercise, hormones such as glucagon and epinephrine activate the cyclic AMP PKA pathway. The PKA phosphorylates the glycogen synthase, converting it into the inactive synthase B form and shutting down the glycogen synthesis. This inhibitory effect is reinforced by other kinases, including GSK3 and calcium dependent kinases, creating multiple layers of regulation to ensure that glycogen is not synthesized when the body needs glucose for energy. This reciprocal regulation is critically important because it prevents futile cycling, the wasteful situation in which the glycogen is simultaneously synthesized and degraded. In simple terms, insulin flips the storage switch on while the glucagon epinephrine flip it off. As a result, glycogen synthase acts as a highly responsive metabolic gatekeeper, integrating the hormonal signals and the nutrient availability to decide whether the glucose should be stored or used immediately. So, coming to summary, during fasting, exercise, or stress, the blood glucose is low. In the liver, both glucagon and epinephrine, whereas in skeletal muscle, only the epinephrine, they activate the adenylyl cyclase. This adenylyl cyclase converts ATP into cyclic AMP. Because of that, the cyclic AMP binds to the regulatory subunits of the protein kinase A. The regulatory subunits, once they are bound to cyclic AMP, the catalytic units are free, and the protein kinase A becomes into an active formed protein kinase A. Then what happens? Activated protein kinase A phosphorylates the alpha and beta subunits of the phosphorylase kinase and activates the phosphorylase kinase. The phosphorylase kinase then phosphorylates the inactive glycogen phosphorylase B to active glycogen phosphorylase A. And we know glycogen phosphorylase is the enzyme that will increase the glycogenolysis. One more thing you have to remember here is when cyclic AMP binds to the regulatory subunits and it activates the protein kinase A, the protein kinase A also acts on glycogen synthase. The PKA phosphorylates the active form of the glycogen synthase, that is the A form, to inactive glycogen synthase B. And we know glycogen synthase will increase the glycogenesis. But here, since the glycogen synthase is being inactivated, the glycogenesis decreases. Now, coming to the other situation, after meals, the blood glucose is high. So, what happens here? The free glucose binds to the active glycogen phosphorylase A and induces conformational changes. Because of that, the phosphate group on the serine 14 is exposed. The enzyme protein phosphatase 1 removes that phosphate group on the active glycogen phosphorylase A, converting it into inactive glycogen phosphorylase B. And because of that, since the glycogen phosphorylase is inactive, glycogenolysis decreases. And the other hormone that can get activated when the blood glucose level is high is insulin. Once insulin gets activated, it will activate the protein phosphatase 1. This protein phosphatase 1, we have already seen, it is converting an active phosphorylase A into inactive phosphorylase B. But what happens in glycogen synthase is it removes the phosphate group from the inactive glycogen synthase B and activates it into active glycogen synthase A. So once glycogen synthase is activated, glycogenesis increases. And there is one more mechanism of insulin acting in this pathway. That is, insulin also activates the enzyme phosphodiesterase. Along with protein phosphatase 1, phosphodiesterase enzyme is also activated. The phosphodiesterase enzyme, it degrades the cyclic AMP to 5' AMP. Because of this, cyclic AMP pathway is inhibited. If cyclic AMP pathway is inhibited, glycogenolysis is decreased and glycogenesis is increased. Now, coming to the allosteric activators. The first one is glucose 6 phosphate. Whenever the body is having high levels of glucose 6 phosphate, that means it indicates that there are sufficient energy stores in the body. When there is sufficient energy in the body, the glucose need not be broken down. So, glycogenolysis is inhibited and glycogenesis, the storage is increased. The other allosteric activators or inhibitors are AMP and calcium. Whenever the AMP levels and calcium levels are increased, it indicates the body's energy stores are low. Because of this, the glycogenesis decreases and glycogenolysis increases. So, final important table in terms of enzymes is this one. You have to remember this for sure. We have two enzymes, glycogen synthase, glycogen phosphorylase. Both of them active states are called as A forms. The glycogen synthase is active in dephosphorylated state, whereas glycogen phosphorylase is active in phosphorylated state. So this is the table that you have to remember must and should. So that concludes the 4-part series on the glycogen metabolism. Hope you have understood the topic. Do like the video and subscribe to the channel if you liked it. So see you in the next one.